Right. So let's move on. Let's talk about your career as a producer. Now, you're currently working on an upcoming documentary movie named The Beast When Eddie Met Arnie. And for those who don't know, this is the famous powerlifter. I believe he's the world's strongest man, or was the world's strongest man, Eddie Hall, and
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, which, I mean, this just blows your mind just thinking about these two names in this same place. Talk to me a little bit about how you landed this particular project and what the experience has been like so far, because I understand you're still working on it. I saw that there was a potential release date of like October this year, but then there's other sources that say it's sometime in 2021. So it's kind of all a bit confusing, but I understand that, you know, there's a lot in terms of like production, post-production and so on. So talk to us a little bit about this experience.
Yeah, I'm super indebted to my business partner, Winston Ellis. So I started working with Winston over 2 years ago now, and I produced Winter Ridge with Dom Lenoir, Matt Hookings, and a couple of other guys. Stepped away from that before production because I was moving on to other stuff, and then I had so many projects that I was like, I can produce this, and I can produce this, I can produce this. And I sat down with Winston, and we got on really well. And he sort of has shown me the way that production is done right. And for me, that was a turning point. So with myself and Winston, we've got Razor Edge Films, and that's our production company that is pushing this forward. We're working with Geredo Universe and a couple of other production companies as well. And the real, it came about from one meeting to discuss what this project could be. So Winston was brought in as executive producer and was gave it a lot more scope in terms of what it could be as a project. And it started out a lot smaller. It was one man's journey. And it was, how do you follow in your icon, hero, mentor's footsteps? It's got a lot bigger since then. So that was like the burgeoning point of it, because Eddie, absolutely wonderful guy, truly salt of the earth, humble, lovely guy, devoted his life to this 500 kilo deadlift and to be the world's strongest man. And he promised his nan on her deathbed that that's what he was going to do. And that sort of thing is incredibly powerful. So Winston brought in a fantastic director, Chris Fratwell. And the idea is how do we show that there are parallels between what Eddie has done and where Eddie is and what Arnold did? So our parallels started off straight away with Mr. Olympia, and Arnold being at the top of his game, and then deciding to go to New York. And everyone was a naysayer to Arnold. You're not American. You're a power lifter. You're a bodybuilder. You're not. And that was it. That was where Arnold flipped it on its head. And you've got Hercules in New York, where you've got this huge Austrian guy playing Hercules, and that's been like a pivotal point for not just Arnold, but if you look at Jason Statham, former Olympic diver, Dolph Lundgren, Terry Crews, Jet Li, Carl Weathers. The list is endless, and oddly enough, there are a lot of actors that I love their work. So we drew all these parallels, and then it was a case of how do we show the impact that Arnold's had and how that affects someone who's already at the top of their game. But what happens when their top of their game is now the starting block again? And so that's been incredibly important, because like I said earlier, everyone's second job is entertainment. Everyone's second job is, I can present, or I can TikTok, or I can YouTube, or whatever it might be. And but it's how do you make a success of that? And so that's what we're discussing, and that's the crux of the documentary, is that professional movement. And then the drama side of it is...
Can I just press you on that real quick? So if I understood the blurb correctly, because I read this on IDMB, Eddie Hall wants to pursue acting as well. So he literally wants to fully in the footsteps of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's correct, yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that.
And then, so because it's a docudrama, we've got some recreations, and the turning point for Eddie in terms of Arnold being the icon, the hero, was Terminator 2, and
yes,
it is for a lot of us. It's iconic. So we recreated that with Eddie in a bar in Stoke. It's absolutely fantastic. Eddie did an incredible job. So did all the stunt guys. The way Chris broke down the scene to have Eddie hit those beats as the Terminator, and we didn't need an Austrian accent or anything like that. It was Eddie being the Terminator as Eddie Hall, and those sort of things really sort of draw your attention to the fact that everyone has those universal experiences, those universal moments that we can all say, that was when I discovered Schwarzenegger, or that was when I discovered action films or horror, or because I mean Terminator fundamentally is a horror film. The first two, it's the oncoming monster, it's the monster in the dark, especially the first Terminator. So yeah, that the beast as a whole, and where I sort of came in is the team was built and the team was ready to go, and it was looking at the creative direction. It was looking, and the team that are involved in this are all incredible. They're leaders in their game. Chris Fretwell is an awesome director. We've got a fantastic DOP. We've got some great documentary shooters as well that have all done awesome work. The documentary shooter that we're working with has captured some incredible content, and it's really sort of touching, heartwarming stuff that he's captured, which is, I mean, it can only benefit. I mean, there's a lot more going on with this project at the moment, and COVID has kind of helped in that sense, because we've analysed where it is, what it could be, and how big it could be. There's a big thing about mental health, which is incredibly important with this. Eddie struggled with mental health. There's a fantastic documentary that is on YouTube where he talks about that. But Arnold is a huge advocate for mental health and what you can do to develop and progress. Dwayne Johnson, John Cena, Dolph Lundgren, they all talk about it. Terry Crews talks about it. All these ex-sports stars that are trying to show that you don't have to be the alpha male. You don't have to be, it's okay to not be okay in that sense. So yeah, where I came in is sort of to assist with the direction that we were going in, and working closely with all the different departments. So yeah, it's been an awesome experience for me. I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into fiction now. That's something where it's like, okay, I want to create a world now, and sort of sit down with a director and do that. But yeah, producing was one of those things where, like I said earlier, it's knowing other people's jobs, knowing what other people do, and then appreciating them for it and letting them do it. That's the job of a producer, is to keep an eye on the numbers, keep an eye on the people. And if you can do that and you can follow your gut, then that's how you develop a project as a whole. And that's something that's been drilled into me by Winston a lot, which is, again, something that I'm very grateful for as well.
Yeah, and like from what I understand, now you mentioned obviously the movie that you worked on back in 2018, which was Winter Ridge, and from what I understand, you worked as a assistant producer, and ever since then you've been taking on various assistant producer roles, and then this was like your first one as a just full-on producer. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing with like producers as a whole, and what one person brings will make them ex-producer. What someone else brings So with Winter Ridge, I was operating as like an associate producer. I was bringing different people in and lining up stuff. Like worked when someone pulled up placement for it and things like that. Helped develop the script. So being a producer is what elements you might bring. So like an exec might bring the money or might bring the talent. A producer might be bringing the logistical side or going over the budgets. And so, yeah, it's for me, I had no bones or ego about the fact that as much as I read about and know the industry, I was happy to relearn a load of it and to appreciate again what goes into so many other departments and the hard work. I mean, the AD department, I would go grey very quick working as an AD. They do a fantastic job, and line producers, they've got to be borderline savants to understand what things cost and when they're going to cost, and this is going to happen. And I could try and break down a budget, I really could, but then a line producer will go, but what about this, and this, and they'll go into like, and it's the plethora of things that you don't see. Being a producer, you developed a whole new appreciation for the level of talent, skill, and professionalism that people in the industry have. And watching the execs, so I took a step back on one of the shooting days, and I watched the stunt coordinator, Ray Nicholas, an absolutely incredible stunt coordinator, Winston, who was the exec, and the director. And I took a step back and I watched them and the way they ran the set and the way they spoke to people and the way they brought everything together. And like I said, it was like a living, breathing being, and really high intensity sequence. There was a stunt on the day. There was a lot of moving parts. We had fire thing, lots of stuff. I can't say what it is because it's going to be a great part of the film. But watching them do that, again, you sort of take that step back and you're like, all right, that's where I've got to be. That's what I've got to do. And then you go back in and then you're back running a film set and you're like, yeah, we've got to do this, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. I've just seen them do that, so I know that we can do this. Simple things like I'm a big fan of anyone who's a second unit director, because I think that's the real nitty gritty. Like first unit gets all the fun and glory, and then second unit, go and do all of that. You've got 3 minutes, and like so those sort of things. And looking at the specialist parts of stuff. So I've got a huge passion for action. I have done since I was about 4 years old. So like, I mean, my two of my favorite films are Terminator 2 and Alien 2, and for the action sequences, really. And that sort of stuck with me. And it was only now with like the advent of social media and the open access that you get from YouTube that you see what went in to getting those iconic things that you and I probably growing up would take for granted as, oh, it was just a film. But the amount of effort that went into making Aliens is astonishing. And that's one of my favorite horror / action films of all time. And the same with Terminator 2. Little things like using twins for some of the sequences. So the bit in the foundry where Sarah Connor appears, and it's the twin sister, and using the puppet of Arnold's head as Arnold, and Arnold plays the mirror, like very incredible stuff. But if it wasn't for open access and YouTube and things like that, you would never see it. And it's those things, that creativity of the industry, that keeps reigniting. I sound like a total geek, but it reignites my interest each time with that, because it's like, so that's how that gets done. That's how I can add it to this, and that's how we can do this.
I've never understood the issue with when people have an issue with being a geek or being knowledgeable about something, like, because
I have no issue with it. I am a self-professed geek nerd. I have to be.
It's cool. It's cool to be a geek, but like, it's not just about like interests though. Like, I guess the bigger thing is being like having like a thirst for knowledge, having like a thirst for learning as much as you can in all areas. And like you said, kind of understanding all of the different areas and parts that go into producing a movie or a TV show or a documentary. Because like understanding the whole helps you understand the intricate parts within better as well, you know, and
Yeah, exactly that.
why wouldn't you want to know that? Like, I don't know. It confuses me when people get to a point where they're just like, yeah, you know, I know everything in this area. I'm fine. I'm done learning. Like, what?
That's one thing you'll never be done with.
Exactly. Yeah. What have been sort of the biggest challenges with this project so far?
So, because it's docudrama, some at certain points you're beholden to people and their schedules, because that's in the inherent part of documentary is you catch people when they're being themselves. So scheduling, always a problem, always 100% a problem. The other things was the reality of the situations. So as much as we wanted to do drama, we didn't want to do drama for the sake of it. We wanted drama to have weight. So we had a fantastic young actor come in, a lad called Alex Needham, and he's playing Eddie from the ages of 16 to 19. And
I see. When you say docudrama, so that you're going to have some scenes in it that are like pure,
yeah.
okay,
We
reenactments.
recreated some iconic beats from Eddie's life, and Alex brings that 19-year-old Eddie back to life in a way that we weren't expecting that sort of level. The drama is next level in terms of the quality, and it's heart-wrenching stuff, and it's the sort of thing where the people on the set were uncomfortable with how good it was, and that was, you know, so that was something that was hard, because we, like I say, it had to have weight, it had to have meaning, and it had to have relevance. If it didn't, then we were wasting our time. So that's been incredibly hard. I'm actively not going to touch on COVID, because that's an everyone issue.
Can I ask you one question with that though? And has that been responsible for the pushback of the release date of the movie?
Yeah, we can't get to certain places. We can't get to California at the moment, and
right.
Or Ohio, and so with that, it's a case of when travel restrictions ease up, we get back on it. So yeah, that's been the key thing for us. Is this is a vehicle not just to tell a story about one man. This is much bigger than that. It's about the trials and tribulations you have to go through to be successful. It's transitioned from being the elite of any particular sport or the elite of any industry, and what do you do next? Or what happens when you decide to change that pathway? And then the mental health avenue is immense, because it's something that, yes, we are more open to talking about it, but it's something that until you see that A-lister star talking about it, until you see someone that you have seen in every action film talk about it, it's still going to have that that stigma, that taboo to it. So this will be a vehicle to have people not use that as an excuse not to talk about things. And everyone's been there to a greater or lesser extent, and I wouldn't say anyone's a liar that says they haven't done it, but they just didn't recognize it, I would say. So yeah, without sounding too serious, that's the real worthwhile meaning for the project, and that's the driving force behind it, is that this affects everyone. And as much as it's a story about the world's strongest man and the Terminator, it's not. It's far more socially relevant and culturally relevant than that.
It sounds incredible, I must say. Like, obviously, just reading the blurb on IDMB doesn't really convey exactly what you're conveying right now. It definitely seems much deeper. But it sounds fascinating, and particularly with you explaining sort of the parallels between Eddie Hall and Arnold Schwarzenegger, it kind of goes together quite nicely. It's quite logical in terms of storytelling, and makes it more even interesting that it's, it's a pure documentary as well. It's not just like a fiction, but it's like a real thing that people can relate to and believe in. And I think we always need stuff like that in the world, really, don't we?
We had to make Eddie accessible, and
Right.
because being the world's strongest man, sometimes that's almost a deterrent. That's almost like how do I relate to someone who's elite and strong? But Eddie's he's very personable. He's a fantastic guy. So it was very much making sure that we could actually show that. But what we did is we took his past and we recreated it. We showed this is what Eddie's gone through. This is where, and people will relate to that. People will relate to the loss of a loved one, the change of career, all those sort of things, difficult childhoods, all those different facets of Eddie's life. So that was, again, like something that is a different string to the bow of this film.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. I really do appreciate it, and I'm sure all of our listeners are very excited about that, and will appreciate that too. In terms of like the release date, I know it's impossible to say for sure, but do you reckon we can expect this at the latter end of this year, or is it more likely that 2021 is going to be kind of when it hits?
I mean, we're at the behest of the exec producers with that one, but it's very much because they'll know based on talking to distributors, and the nitty gritty of that will be when is the best time to release it more than anything else.
Okay.
So I would imagine it'll be 2021, and it'll. I mean, how long's a piece of string? But yeah, I mean, I would imagine April, May 2021. I think.